Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm on the road. As you people are watching video, you can see that I'm in a different setting. And welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. And did you know that today is Tuesday? Yes, I'm saying two because it's 2/22/22. Can you imagine that? It's a day I'm sure everyone's playing the lottery. Well, if you are doing that, good luck. We have a great guest today, and I kind of got her all jumbled up because I'm kind of jumbled up, and I think I told her to be in studio in an hour, but she's going to be jumping in any minute. I may bring Bill in for a minute to help me out until then. Our blog this week is UFOs and High Strangeness in Argentina, and this is an extra long blog Charles did this week. A lot of really. Do you remember? I don't know if you people follow the blogs and you follow the audio blogs on this channel. It had to do with this woman that ended up like 60 miles away somehow. She doesn't know what happened. People are speculating that she was abducted, things like that. But there's a lot to that story, and Charles has been kind of investigating. That just happened a few months ago, I believe, down in Argentina. So another great blog on that. I want to thank everyone that helps supports the show. I do appreciate that. Next week, I'm going to be off the grid, and I'm not even going to say where I'm going to be, but I'm not going to be available for the show. So we have a pre-recorded show that's going to go live with Kevin Randall and Albert Wayne. Albert, as you remember, had that amazing UFO sighting on the I-95 corridor, and he's had a lot of different things happen, really bizarre things happen with his family. We talk about that as well and elaborate a little more on that specific case. And I think that is about it. I do want to thank everyone that supports the show, everyone that participates and watches the show live or listens to it as a podcast. I will tell you, I'm way behind on email. I had a business deadline I had to finish, but I shouldn't have any excuses. I'm just really behind in email. I always caution people, if you listen to this show and you want to send me an email, it's better to do it piecemeal, like the 1 or 2 paragraph emails. I can read those fine, but when I get the 5 pagers, it's I just don't have time to do that. And I've been getting a lot of email each and every day. So on this, about the show, about UFO sightings. And by the way, I do have on my website, podcastufo.com, I have a anonymous posting, a form. If you have a UFO sighting, if you had a UFO sighting, I do encourage you to fill out that form. And you have the choice to remain anonymous or not. You can put your information in there if you want to. But also, I always encourage people to report to MUFON and to Peter Davenport's site, I always forget the name of that one. But anyway, 2 great places to report your UFO sightings. And if you want it investigated, MUFON is a place, the Mutual UFO Network is a place to report it there. So for now, I'm going to bring my buddy Bill in to chat. Jane will be in a little while. Bill, thanks for filling in as always.
Good afternoon. When you said you were going to be at another location, I said, well, he can't be on the boat, can he?
My boat? No, not this time of year. Yeah.
I didn't figure that you were on the boat.
Yeah, no. Too cold. It was when I left New England, was it yesterday? 2 days ago. It was something like 10 degrees. I don't think that's not good boating weather yet. But anyway, Bill, hey, why don't you talk a little bit? You're really involved in the Pine Bush thing that happened last year. I was out there, had a great time, and it's coming up, and I know it's in June. June seems like far away, but June 3rd. And who's going to be there this year? Do you know any details yet?
I'm working on quite a bit. I can't discuss it because it's not publicized yet on the officially.
Yeah.
But a few big names. Lee Spiegel will be there. I can confirm that. Shaul Costa.
Yep.
Mark D'Antonio.
Yep.
Bob Spearing of MUFON.
Who's Bob?
He's the international director, I believe, of MUFON.
Oh, really? Oh, how about that?
You're going to come hang out, but I just want to let everybody know that's watching and listening right now. Martin was there for the costume ball, and we were all hanging out.
Yeah.
And Martin got out there, and he was dancing a storm, folks.
I got more comments about that. Well, I was doing the John Travolta thing, I guess.
I was like, look at him go.
I know.
So,
Some young girl said, "Boy, you can dance." I couldn't believe it. I was pretty embarrassed, but anyway.
So this year, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to have it on Friday, June 3rd, and we should have 6 to 7 speakers, presenters doing their.
Yep. So
Now,
last year it was on a Saturday, right? The speakers were on a Saturday. This year it's going to be in the Friday. Friday during the day or at nighttime?
evening. I would say doors will open approximately 5:30.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bill, our guest is waiting in the wings. So thank you very much for filling in.
Have a great time.
All right. Thank you. Jane, welcome to the show.
Hey. I finally made it. I'm so sorry I'm late.
No, it was totally my fault. I totally messed up on the time. And I'm so lucky you were available. And I do.
So
as soon as you said that I told you 5:50 Texas time, I said, "Oh yeah, I remember typing that." So,
well,
yeah.
I should. I'm also the worst with time zones as well. So I should have double checked with you.
Yeah. Well,
but I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to be here. So
I know you were on quite a while ago. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it's been some time.
I think it was actually before the New York Times article came out, and so much
right around there or something. Yeah.
Everything's changed so much. And I happened to be on Lou's show, the Unidentified Celebrity Review, and you were on it, and I thought, hey, that'd be great to have you back on again. So here we are.
It was so fun to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you do a YouTube channel where you kind of more or less focus on UFOs in Texas. And how does that rate as far as, the reports go in the country? You know how like California is usually number one. Do you know? Have you ever looked into that?
I used to know more about how Texas compared to the country and the world years ago, but in this recent year, I've really decided to laser focus on sightings here in Texas. I'd actually hoped to launch something by now in February, but it should be coming soon where people can see more in-depth reports than what I'm able to feature on YouTube or the website, because I know there's a real craving for, where's the data? Where's, so I would say I've kind of been enjoyably ignorant of a lot of what's going on in California and New York. And, I used to love tracking UFOs in Japan and all that. I will say it's super darned active here. Incredibly active. I would say lately it's actually been difficult for me to keep up with. So I would suspect Texas rates right up there with California. And maybe that has to do with just sheer population numbers, the amount of people that are looking up at the sky to report things. It could be that you're just as likely to see something in Texas as you are Arkansas or Ohio or anywhere. I don't know that I found a great trend in all my years of reporting of, where you're most likely to see a UFO.
Well, for one thing, if you think about, I had a friend that did a report, years ago in high school, and that he figured that that every single person in the world could fit in the state of Texas and have 6 people or 8 people per acre or something ridiculous like that. I mean, it's such a landmass with, with not a huge population, but you also have better weather than we do up in the Northeast. So you have outdoor activity more of the time. And that's one of the reasons, besides California's 20 million people, I think one of the reasons that there are so many sightings there in particular is because of the weather. There's a lot of really nice weather, as in Texas, not quite as nice, but pretty nice most of the year there. So as far as numbers go, I know that every year they post, where something rates, in the scope of things as far as the states go and the sightings. I'm talking about MUFON in particular. Is there a good MUFON group there, state state-run group?
Yeah, so there's a good MUFON San Antonio group that I'm well familiar with and have spoken with, and I know Ken, who runs that group there, or at least recently did. And I'm sure they have a really great one in Austin. So I would imagine all the big cities here have pretty strong meetups. Houston, Dallas. I'm guessing, though don't quote me. So yeah, MUFON's pretty. I mean, MUFON's where I see most of the reports here in Texas. So that's where people file their testimony when they see something. That's most likely where they're going to go. Well, there's, of all the different outlets, I would say overall, though, most reports are ending up outside of MUFON or nowhere, right? So, but it's a hodgepodge, right, between Twitter or New Fork or YouTube, and then people do email me and message me with their reports as well. So yeah, I would say MUFON's very strong. It's a huge resource, and there's some incredible testimonies and photos and videos that get submitted there regularly, every single week.
And when I was doing my monologue before you were in the green room, so to speak, I had mentioned the two different places to report UFOs, and I forgot New Forks.
Yeah, another great one.
Yeah, that's the one I was trying to think of there. Peter Davenport's behind the wheel on that, and what a dedicated man he is. He's been at that so long.
Yeah, it's a great database. So yeah, you can spend a lot of time just searching through New Fork and coming across all kinds of amazing sightings you just never knew occurred. They're just out there in the ether.
Yes. Now, what about I would say when I think about Texas UFO cases in the past, you think of the Marfa lights? You think of I'm trying to remember the exact one where it went at the Bush Ranch. I mean, I'm talking about historical ones.
Stephenville lights. Yes, the 2008 Stephenville lights. Yeah, that was a hugely important case. Yes. With radar evidence. And it was headed toward Crawford Ranch, was the trajectory it was on. So who knows what it was up to? Or
So do you also look into the details of historic sightings there? Let's talk a little bit about that one, because that one to me was really exciting. I mean, there were fighter jets involved and everything.
So here's the problem with the Stephenville lights in particular. It is increasingly hard to research that case. It used to be much easier to go. You can go find. You can go find the radar reports or summaries, I believe, online still, and some photos. But that case, I feel like I get such major heebie-jeebie cover-up Men in Black vibes with that case. It is so hard to research. People still see things in that area today that are kind of similar. And what's interesting is, yes, there were the V-shaped lights, or the lights forming a V-shaped, hard to say if they were connected or not. But there were also sightings of just flashing orbs of light that were really weird that people still see today. And I don't really know what to make of it. I think where it was headed toward Crawford Ranch, definitely, I feel like there must be some secret file somewhere where we could learn more. I probably need to do, a fresh FOIA request on the Stephenville lights. Of all the really famous cases here in Texas, that's the one that's been the most elusive to me as a researcher in trying to pin it down.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, but in the ones that people are stating they're seeing now, do you happen to know if there's any radar data with that as well?
So Stephenville was really unique here in Texas. I'm trying to think. I mean, of course, I guess, there could be classified radar evidence of any number of these, amazing sightings that have happened over the years, is what I would theorize. I'm having trouble thinking of any other Texas cases where you could actually go investigate the radar evidence. But yeah, I mean, that's what makes me think it must be somewhere, or was somewhere at some point. There's been some really amazing historic cases where it appears that maybe even our government or military was aware of these sightings. So it's entirely possible that they were tracking them. This started in actually the 1950s here in Texas. There were a wave of saucer sightings. I have some recent YouTube videos and articles that covered this. So people think, 1947 flying saucer was really a weather balloon, and that's it. And actually, there were so many saucer sightings in Texas in the 50s that actually in Waco, Texas, there used to be an Air Force base. They actually installed towers around there to specifically detect flying saucers and to capture evidence of those. So I don't know where those files are. I don't know if they ever, captured any evidence, right? But we do have a newspaper article and an eyewitness that also reported to me, who worked in the military and knew about those towers. And another case that comes to mind where I think the government and military was aware of the UFO was the Cash-Landrum incident in 1980, which was in
yes.
East Texas, right? And helicopters, purportedly swarmed that object. So could there be some secret, radar evidence, secret photos or videos of some of these craft? It's, I tend to think maybe.
Yeah. I had Colby Landrum on this show before.
Wow.
And I've had several, over the years. I've had a number of, 3 or 4 total of like video, filmmakers trying to get a hold of him through me. And I'm still in touch with him, and I'm thinking about asking him back on, because it's just, I personally think, and Michael Schratt kind of alludes to the fact that it might have been an experimental American, craft but it may have been using some type of nuclear technology for propulsion or something for them to get the burns. But I think I want to get him back on again, because that's such an interesting case in general.
Oh, it's hugely fascinating. And well, I mean, you could even say that Becky Landrum, the two adult women that encountered the UFO, that they also even could, I don't know that they subscribed to that theory, but they did sue the government.
Right.
They claimed the
Yeah.
government knew about this craft. So, and they lost that lawsuit. But I've brought this up a few times. I wonder, in today's climate in 2022, with these 2 new UFO offices and this new dedication to studying anomalous effects on human witnesses, if that, what would happen if something like that occurred today, in 2022? Would be more likely or less likely to be covered up now that we have all this, national attention and dedicate efforts to study it. So
you bring up a very good point, because I think now the topic, it's almost like I say this on a weekly basis. The topic is not so taboo at this point. People are open to talking about it without worrying about ridicule. I do have, someone I had scheduled for the show coming up in another month or so that wanted to remain anonymous and without any pictures. And I said, I'm sorry, there's no real need to do that at this point, and this person is not purporting to have a high level job or anything, for the government or anything like that to be worried about. So I don't really understand that the stigma is getting less and less as we go along. And along those lines, do you think that's probably the reason there's a lot more sightings in Texas being reported, is because more people are curious or looking up or maybe reporting when they normally wouldn't report in the past?
So it's questionable if sightings are up. I think, if you look at, like, let's say the last decade, you probably see, you wouldn't see this direct, increase in sightings. And there are UFO flaps. There are waves of sightings.
Yes.
I do think the quantity of reports does correlate to actual UFO sightings. And I don't think it always correlates to, oh, it's in the news or people are looking up. So I think that's what probably your graph line would work on. And like I said, I hope to launch something more by this point, because I like numbers and I like to be really precise with them and not necessarily assume. I don't feel like reports are necessarily increasing right now in Texas. I would say it actually appears to me that if they are visiting, that they were much more obvious back in the day. And it was easier to get a photo of them. And when people did have abduction experience, there seemed to be more trace physical evidence or, other eyewitnesses to back it up, like the 1970s Travis Walton abduction, for example. So I actually feel like as time has gone on, they have become more elusive. And I don't know that the photos or videos are quite as good actually as they used to be. But yes, people are, I mean, look, people are saying things all the time. Maybe sightings of Chinese lanterns are increasing right now because, more people are out and about. But as far as those quality reports, I don't know that I'm seeing an increase here in Texas so much of just a trend, that's been persistent for quite a while. I remember summers ago, really noticeable triangle waves where there was definitely, something going through the state. And I don't know that I've had, there's been a big wave like that recently. People are definitely reporting. I would say it's more the language that people are using to report and the more their interpretation of it. So I didn't get reports of Tic Tac UFOs before the New York Times story, but they were seen before. People were seeing cylindrical objects hovering in the sky, doing weird things before the Navy videos were launched. I think it has more to do with like the language and the awareness and interpretation around the experience. At least here in Texas, with my limited lens, definitely can't speak to all of reality.
Here's a question up here, and by the way, I thank you, Dave, for being in the chat room. Dave helps out. Dave Altman, thank you. It's always a good idea to put your questions in caps so I don't miss them. But what about? Here's a question. When was the last abduction case that you know about? Is that something that is as prevalent in Texas as it is people reporting that in other parts of the country?
So I don't know what it is about the people who report things to me or the sources that I look for UFO reports, but I really tend to get the nuts and bolts types of reports, where people are like, I'm not crazy, but I saw something weird in the sky, I don't even believe in aliens, but I saw this star-like object. So that is really what I am mostly focused on. That said, there are other researchers here in Texas and alongside me that seem to it's like that's the bulk of what they're getting, or just experiences and abduction accounts and things like that. And I do get that it is definitely rare. It is not as common as just seeing a weird circular light or lights forming a triangle or something like that. It's not as common. I was actually just looking at a MUFON report where somebody was claiming to have had experiences with the reptilian, and this apparently just happened, in Texas, right? Or was just reported. I have not vetted that. The problem with those accounts, and again, this is why I say this might be a self-fulfilling prophecy on my end, is when I do see those abduction reports and accounts. Often the person's not directly coming to me, so I have trouble verifying further. So I'll see it, on outlets like MUFON and things like that. And those testimonies are they're so extraordinary. There's so many claims made in them. And, there's never any photo or videos attached. There's never any elements within the report or details within the report that I can then verify or use to verify it, like maybe fellow eyewitnesses that also saw something in the area at that time, whatever I can to bring some credibility to the account, right? So just often it is very much an experience or a testimony in the true sense of the word. And that's not to say that they're not telling the truth, and that's not exactly what happened, and that might be the most important thing that's going on right now beyond triangles and orbs. But for me as a researcher, I do not just post those testimonies. I have to have some, every once in a while I will share something that I think is good to provoke thought, and I can do a lot of disclaimers about it because it does have to be represented, and it's all we really care about are are the actual aliens, right? So I'm just as fascinated. So I think it might be somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that I don't necessarily highlight those accounts very often. So I don't get those accounts as often. And I tend to stick to more the nuts and bolts, the saucers, the triangles, and the orbs and things like that.
Well, here's one other question, kind of off the UFO itself topic. But I think of Texas, this person asked, I think of Texas as, there's a lot of longhorn, there's a lot of cattle. What about cattle mutilations? Have you ever heard, do you ever hear stories about that going on there?
Yeah. That's another one that people do not get in direct contact with me. That thing, a gray alien I've not, touched a gray alien. I haven't seen a body, in this whole 10 years, I haven't seen, a compelling, crop circle or, cattle mutilation site in person. Personally, I feel like, again, kind of like we were talking about the Stephenville lights, I feel like the cattle mutilation topic is one of the most like heebie-jeebie cover-up Men in Black topics out there. And I would suspect that those are going to sheriffs and remaining in that bucket most of the time, because, I don't really see those reports. It could be that it's not happening as often as it used to. I mean, I know there was in the 70s, there was a huge trend of that. And I'll have to say there was a lot of research done that linked that to humans doing, really disturbing, satanic rituals and things like that. So we have some magazine articles here, and I have a lot of old files and old magazines that I go through here at the house. But yeah, nobody's writing to me about, which is probably good. I don't know if I could handle that. I'm an animal lover, so maybe that's just destiny, and the universe has spared me from that so that I stay in ufology, right?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I feel the same way. Now, what about, and I'll get this person's question up there in just a second, but the Lubbock lights of 1951, right? Is that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one was absolutely fascinating to me. Have you ever looked into that one in particular?
Yes, the Lubbock lights.
I always say it wrong.
It's okay. There's so many cities here that I learn about new cities and reporting about UFOs. It's always fun, when I get a report from a city here in Texas I haven't, even heard of. But the Lubbock lights are, again, 1950s it was super active in Texas. It's really hard to deny that something was going on. There you go. You got it. This is also kind of similar, not exactly, but you could kind of put it in the category of the Stephenville lights or Phoenix lights or triangle cases. So a professor, and I believe in some professors saw these lights, but they weren't the only witnesses. Actually, I don't know that they're the ones that took that particular photo. So there were multiple witnesses. It definitely happened. So, you could theorize, was this something advanced of our own, back in the 50s? What is interesting to think about is it kind of reminds me of things like the Starlink train that Elon Musk, has up there in the skies these days that get reported as UFOs. And so it makes you wonder, like, if these have been advanced satellites, or human satellites even back then? Because if the Lubbock lights were to be reported today, people would say, oh, it's Starlink. And so I think that also goes to show how hard ufology is today. when you have things like Starlink up there and all these advanced drones, and you have all like thousands of satellites, and so I kind of hate it when, if you see a UFO on a night that Starlink's out, it's just going to get called Starlink. Like, good luck. You're not going to be able to prove to anybody that it was
Oh, I
anything.
see what you're saying. Sure.
Right. So it goes both ways, right? So it's like, okay, well then if all of these anomalous lights are Starlink, well then let's look at all the past. Then what were they in the past? They couldn't have been Starlink then. And if, so it's really hard. It's increasingly hard these days with all the stuff that we're putting up there in the sky.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
And it's not going to get any better. As we go along, there's going to be more advanced drones, and it depends on what the regulations are going to be enforced on drones, the use of them and things like that. But as we develop more and more, it's going to be harder and harder. And I'm still waiting for the flying car.
Right.
And when that's out there, then it's another game changer.
Yeah, then it's over. Ufology's over when we've got the flying car, right?
Yeah.
We are the aliens then. So
we're the aliens.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I heard you use the term aliens, and do you think? I always ask people more or less just their opinion. Do you think the answer to what a lot of people are seeing, and you mentioned some of it is probably military or our own, but do you think it's possible that we're getting an extraterrestrial visitation?
I haven't shaken hands with the gray alien, right? So I haven't been able to find that physical, undeniable, indisputable proof of extraterrestrial visitation. ... yet. Or in caps letters, yet. So it's and I'm also not an experiencer. I kind of saw a UFO one time, well into being a UFO reporter. So I really can't, 100% say that. What I would say, if I had to bet on it, I would definitely put it more than the 50% chances. And it's weird. I feel like I go back and forth sometimes.
Yeah.
In this space, it's like one day it's like all of this is just, is just a big deception, like self-deception even, or all of it is just completely true. And why are we doubting the great alien still at this point? So sometimes I'm just like, is it just self-evident? Like, is it just obvious that the grays are real and we just need to accept that and not be so surprised when somebody shares an encounter with them? So, sometimes I'm in that camp where it doesn't even seem that extraordinary to me. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's I could live in that reality. And then other days it's like, well, okay, well, if you saw a gray alien, how do you know you really saw a gray alien? Was it something pretending to be a gray alien? How can you trust the information they're giving you and they're telling you they're from Zeta Reticuli? What if they're lying? So it's just, then I kind of realize, we're never gonna figure this out. Like, we're never gonna figure out if there's extraterrestrials or not, even if we think we figured it out. So that's my long-winded, rambling, unsatisfying answer.
Well,
answer to that.
Well, I agree that I sometimes, I know you're not really asking my opinion, but I'll give it to you anyway. I think it's possible. I do think it's possible that at least some of what we're seeing is extraterrestrial. I also think it's possible that it could be a number of different things that we're seeing. Some could be of our own crafts that we're seeing that we just don't know about. But I do think that it is, as crazy as it sounds, it's possible it's an interdimensional type of situation. It's possible it's, like I said, multiple things, including extraterrestrial. I would say that I would think that is a very likely prospect that we are being visited by extraterrestrial. I think it's very possible, but I don't know for sure. And like you said, I'm not really sure if we'll ever know. I don't know if I'll ever know in my lifetime, and I don't know if it's all that necessary to know either.
Right.
I mean, maybe, um, you know, maybe we wouldn't even understand what's going on if we knew. And I don't. I'm wondering. I actually do think that the government probably knows, or some part of the government probably knows more than we do, but I still would doubt that they know the full story. I highly doubt they know the full story.
I don't think they know the full story yet either, but I do think there are people that might think that they know the full story,
Yeah.
that are in, high positions and keep that story secret. And I think they're fooling themselves, because I think that they would learn more if they would just disclose all of this and we could all share this information together. And yeah, as to your point of many different things going on, I mean, that 100% certainly can say, as with the UFO phenomenon. I don't mean Chinese lanterns or fireworks or drones. I don't mean that it can be all these man-made boring explanations, but I would say, what I've found more, or where I've been able to turn over more stones and find, and I think make a little more progress, is when we look into the phenomenon of ball lightning and orbs, and even those earthquake lights and things like that. I think there's
Yeah.
something really to that, and that's not that may not be an intelligent extraterrestrial thing, but I do think it's something that's been really locked down and not okay to study from a scientific perspective. And I think there could be a lot of really powerful knowledge, in studying those types of lights. I'll probably have a video soon, so I don't want to give too much away, but I've been looking into Chernobyl and the effects of radiation. And, is it possible that radioactive sites could create anomalous lights, and that maybe government doesn't want us to know that there's radioactive, that's happening, right? So there's all kinds of reasons, right, for the cover up of UFOs, and it may not all be just, gray aliens and reptilians. It's, I think, if we can be open minded and not afraid of the truth, period, any truth, we will learn, we will progress, we will learn a lot of really exciting things. But whether or not we prove interdimensional, or physical aliens flying from literally one planet here right to us, without having to warp time or whatever, maybe they can, for all we know. I don't know if we'll get to the bottom of that, but we will make progress. We are going to find out some cool stuff for sure.
I do remember reading something about, and I don't know if there was ever any truth to it at all, about some type of possible intervention at Chernobyl, when they were doing their sarcophagus. They were putting over the meltdown reactor. I mean, you heard about those things, but I don't know if there was any truth
I
to
actually
that.
haven't heard of so that's really fun. So stay tuned for this video. I'm going to be like super diving into Chernobyl, and it's a whole, what got me interested in it is there was somebody who went and filmed the cleanup of the site. And so there was a news story out about this recently, and the film was contaminated, right? And it created this kind of anomalous, look on the film. And so I need to dig in more, but it really just kind of, really woke me up to, because I've always been fascinated with the idea of free energy and ball lightning and, energy within the earth itself, creating some of these fantastical lights that we see that seem intelligent. Marfa lights, I think, would be the example here in Texas. So you had mentioned that.
Yeah.
So, that's an ongoing real-time phenomenon that has not been debunked. And they're just like these, I haven't gotten to see them in person. It's definitely a goal. But these just orbs of light that appear and disappear and seem to dance around. People tried to debunk them as reflections of car headlights driving, on the highways there. But these were seen, back in the 1800s, before cars. So that's not a likely explanation, but maybe there's something more to this. Think about some of the other kind of woo-woo part of this field is, things like ley lines and all of that. And so I think there's a lot there to uncover, and that may not be a humanoid alien in a spaceship abducting us. It could be something entirely different.
So what I have heard the fact that they're saying that the Marfa, that's MARFA, lights were happening all this time. How were they being reported? Were they in the news? Here's some of them right here.
Like
And I do understand this is ongoing, but were they reporting them in the newspaper like in the 1800s? How would you know that?
I'd have to. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've looked into it, so I'd have to look into it. That's a good question. The very first Marfa Lights report was. I'm not sure. Yeah, I would assume it would be the newspapers. The newspapers are littered with UFO reports in Texas. It's some of my favorite places to go look are the old newspaper archives for accounts of UFOs, and again, those flying saucers, all throughout the 50s. So 1800s, I mean, we have newspaper reports of the Aurora, Texas UFO crash, so it's very possible that the Marfa Lights were also documented as well, but I'd have to go dig it up and unearth it. So that might be a cool article to do soon. So good idea.
Well, so getting to the Aurora now,
yeah,
that is, I had thought that was, I don't want to say debunked, but explained as a possible dirigible type situation with hydrogen. They had hydrogen, which was very, very flammable dirigibles with some type of motor prop or something and that was a possibility of that. I know that's been investigated. I know there's supposed to be a grave that's unmarked, and that is not, there's never going to be permission, supposedly, to extradite the body from that. So I don't think we know for sure unless you've looked into it more.
That's really interesting. So when I initially really learned about Aurora, Texas, this story, the debunking effort then, if you ask me, there was a journalist that said that they had just all made it up. The town wanted attention, and that was the story. So if you went to Wikipedia or you didn't know anything about UFOs, that's what you were told back then. So it's interesting now. Oh, okay, now that's not true. Okay, it did happen. Now there's a new. Okay, but it had to, so that I think that I would be very curious, Martin. I haven't heard that latest theory. It is possible, right? So there were lots of airship sightings in the late 1800s. So this wasn't just Texas. This was California, and more than one of them were associated with strange pilots who did not seem like your typical men. In California, there was an airship sighting, and the witnesses reported seeing naked people singing in it. Okay, so that's how weird these sightings got. People were accusing Thomas Edison of making them. So this is very much like today, people accusing like maybe Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos maybe of creating like rogue UFOs, possibly, right? We've kind of heard that out there. So that was happening in the late 1800s, right? So the people were seeing these ships. That's how I figure, well, this case in 1897 was probably real. This craft probably really did crash, in Texas. The timeline, everything added up. And there was no evidence that anybody lied. This is just literally just something a journalist just said. So it's annoying when you'll see that a lot with cases where just somebody says they made it up, and that's easier for people to believe. So people hook onto that. They retweet that. That seems sensible. That seems logical. It seems like an easier thing, a safer thing to bet on, right? But so often you can find no evidence of that, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm curious, but there were obviously, there were the big hot air balloons, and people were experimenting, in the late 1800s. It's not like things weren't flying around. So it very well could have been a man-made object. But then again, if we say that this event really happened, then let's maybe take the witnesses for their word, and that there is a newspaper article and reports and memories, I guess, today of secondhand, third-hand, I guess, accounts today of people actually uncovering a strange, exotic or alien-like humanoid body that was deceased, and it actually had papers on it that had strange symbols, like hieroglyphic-like symbols on it, and they gave the body a Christian burial. And the story goes that MUFON, or somebody, I don't know if not MUFON came later, but the government, at the time, or the military at the time, came in and confiscated, all the evidence, so it's like, nothing happened. And later, I think there were reports that, MUFON also came out to the area and did an investigation, but I don't know what quite they found. I don't know if that was ever fully disclosed or if they found anything tangible. But yeah, I think it's just one of those, it's too long ago.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. People weren't taking Instagram photos back then. So it's kind of lost to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I almost had hit a kiddo interruption just now.
Oh, that's all right.
But yeah, we're good. Yeah, it's so lost to history. So we really just have the legends. I don't think there is a gravestone there, so you can go visit as a tourist, and you can see the report of this burial, but it's not believed that that's actually where the body was located. So it's just symbolic.
I know. I think it was whatever show Bill Burns was in years ago. Was it UFO Hunters? Maybe they did a show on that in particular, and I know they were trying to get some evidence, and I thought they dug somewhere and got some aluminum or something.
I knew that they dug, but I didn't know if they had disclosed what they dug up. So you said some aluminum. Sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
I thought that's what I remember. Speaking of that and materials and things like that, I just announcing one more time that I have Gary Nolan from Stanford coming up on March 15th, and he's going to be joined by Lou Elizondo and Sean Cahill, both. So that should be one heck of a show. So just reminding everyone that's coming up on the 15th of March. So here's a question for you. Someone wants to know about what would you consider one or more of your favorite cases that you've actually investigated yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if we're looking at modern reports, I've just been obsessed with the saucers, and I've, tried to do what I can of witnesses who've reported to me of the saucers they've seen in the 50s, but, I can't, I don't have the materials. I can't, actively really look into that. So I would say the modern day wave, I think sometimes I give an unsatisfying or frustrating answer to this question, because I think if you asked me early on, I'd have these like really specific cases that like blew me away. But over the years, they really all blend into more of a pattern. And so I would say for me, it's the patterns. So I would say the biggest thing to me is the triangle UFOs. So especially now that they've been pretty well acknowledged by the government as being a real, phenomena that they have been secretly looking into, while I was publicly looking into them for years. So that was kind of a nice bow that was put on that conundrum. But I would say early on in reporting UFOs in Texas, those were the most striking reports to me. Sometimes, in some cases, the most unsettling to me, because it was just so obvious that it was happening, just the amount of photos and videos and testimony. And, people would draw pictures, if they couldn't get good photos or videos. And it's really hard to take good photos and videos of anything at night, so much so as a plane or even a full moon, right? So the fact that there was so many, clear photos and videos of essentially, 3 lights in the sky, hovering silently, and that was the main theme of those triangles. But people would see them as if they were in like a firefight, right? As wobbling, or in distress. There was a whole summer where there were a number of triangle UFOs, and it seemed like there was some maybe alarming activity going on like right above our heads here in Texas, for a whole summer. So I can't remember the exact year. Maybe that was 2014. But there was also 2014 also. There were a wave of sightings where people were seeing these, really ominous looking like ring of lights just like hovering in the sky. And it was really tricky because they looked like those big street lights that you see here in Texas. So those big highway lights, so just, a circular ring of lights. But um, those are always here in Texas. But there was one period where I was getting reports of those, and people were seeing them, where these lights did not exist, right? And they were just, but it was easy to debunk them as street lights, but they were not. They were not. And there was a whole, summer of that. And what was that? There was never, I'm afraid to say I was never able to solve those cases. All I could really do is document the photos and the videos and the testimonies, and just try to keep on top of it. And it's helpful to live here in Texas, but I can't get to every city.
Yeah.
I'm not sampling soil, or going to the scene of every UFO site and taking pictures. I mean, I just can't. I literally can't. People can give support with super chat and all that, and that allows me to do more things like that. But for me, I would say my strength is the crowd, is all of you, or all the witnesses. So it's crowdsourcing all that evidence. Somebody saw a triangle on YouTube, or they uploaded footage to YouTube, and it matches a report of somebody reported to MUFON, matches something somebody reported to me. So it's a matter of aggregating, all those patterns. And that's how I felt I've been best able to contribute to this field, because there's already amazing MUFON investigators and folks who will drop everything and, study one case, right? But if I did that, I would study one case for 2 months long, and I might solve it, and that's all I'd have to offer the community. This way I can say, hey, there was, X amount of triangles in this part of the state this month, and then now we're seeing a lot of Tic Tac UFO reports, so what's going on here? So the triangles have always haunted me, and before 2017, they weren't real, right? UFOs weren't real. You were crazy if you talked about them.
Yeah.
The government was not looking into them. And so when 2017 rolled around and we started getting, those official disclosures and acknowledgement of the triangle UFO phenomenon, as well as the orb phenomenon, another, one I'd been documenting quite prevalently here, that was a nice affirmation. Okay. This has been worthwhile. My judgment is somewhat correct here, that something's going on here. So that may not be the answer people are looking for. I think people want to hear about the praying mantis, that encounter, that abducted somebody. And, I have reported on that. But as far as just what I really know to be true and happening, those triangles are real, and the orbs are real as well, but I don't put them in the same category as the triangles at all. They get mixed up again in the earthquake lights and the Marfa lights, and that much, even to some degree, more mysterious phenomenon.
Yeah. Some people have claimed that they've seen, getting back to what you just said about orbs, that people have seemed to claim that they're intelligently controlled. Do you ever hear that? That's something you do hear occasionally.
Well, that's the question, the curiosity that drives, I guess, me even discovering them in the first place, right? Is that, are we alone? And then, when I first got into this field, or when I first started writing about it, I guess I should say, started learning about it in 2007. So I didn't grow up, wasn't born a believer, anything like that. But some of the most compelling videos to me early on were the orbs that appeared, before and after the Japan tsunami in 2011.
Yeah.
And I don't know if those are as easy to find that these days as that footage, but that definitely occurred. There were live news reports that featured these orbs. I covered them at the time. There were some attempts to debunk them as like camera effects and stuff like that, but I've never seen anything like that since or before. And now knowing what I know, it's like I think those were just orbs, and those were wild. They absolutely appeared to be moving intelligently, and almost like dancing around and things like that. And so, yes, I think it's possible. I think if there are intelligent orbs, I do think that must be a different species, must be a different thing, than some of these nuts and bolts saucer triangle craft. It seems to me, when we're talking more interdimensional, right? Like the appearing and disappearing, right? Could that be going in and out of a portal? When these orbs are just hovering or wobbling or dancing, is there something else going on there? Are they are they, for example, I'm just I'll have an article up on the website soon. Somebody was filming an orb, I guess, in their neighborhood for over an hour, just hovering there, and it's just sitting there. It looks like a star, but then it glows, gets really big, and then gets small again, and then it starts flying away. So it's not a star. So what on earth what on earth is going on here? That's not a satellite, that's not a plane. It does seem like it's almost watching us. It does seem like there's some intelligence. At the same time, don't want to get too carried away, because we just like we humanize like animals, right? I think we can kind of humanize lights, right? We can see more in them that there are, and nature can create, quite the light show for us. And so we just have to be careful. And I'm not certain that all the ball lightning accounts are intelligent, or some, again, the most fascinating videos for me. You can go do this. You can go watch live not live earthquake cams, thank God. There's not a bunch of live earthquake cams right now. Live volcano cams.
Yeah.
And you can see these orbs like hovering above the volcano, going into them, coming out of them. I'm not certain that's intelligent, but it sure looks like it is. So what is that? I think there's a lot to uncover here. I sometimes feel like this is the area where I probably will find more answers than with the saucers and triangles, even though those are the most talked about, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I say often on the show, we probably know very little about what's going on around us all the time. I mean, we only see so much in our spectrum, a very small percentage. And then we have other ways of detecting other things, but still there's a lot that could be going on all around us that we have absolutely no clue.
Oh,
here's a question up here. I never heard of this. The Meadow. It's a paranormal spot in the eastern border of Louisiana. Do you know anything about that?
Shoot. Well, Louisiana is not, I mean, it's right next door. And so, but I have not heard about it. I'm Googling it right now. I love it. I love it when people have a new paranormal story or encounter, that I've never heard of. So no, I have not. I'm fascinated though. So I'll be looking into that. I don't know if anybody else in the chat can illuminate on that. So, yep. So there's a lot of bordering states with a lot of interesting things going on beyond Texas for sure. So it's a lot to keep up with. So.
Yeah. Just a question here. Someone wants to know, can we phone in questions? No, but in just about a half hour or so, we will be taking calls, and Bill will be standing by for that to answer those calls. I do have, if you want to, I just say, if you have a question, just do what you're doing, Stephen. Put the question in caps, and I'll try to get it up for our guest. Otherwise, you can wait until our phone lines open in about a half hour from now. So, as far as all the historic cases, we talked about the I'm going to say it wrong, the Lubbock lights, and I know we talked about that there were college professors that saw this. In this particular picture here, do you know who took that? I mean, I just want to revisit this
This
case a
might have
little
been
more.
a boy. Let's see. I'm pulling it up now because I don't want to. I think this might. Oh shoot! This might have been a boy that took this particular picture. But let's see.
Well, you think about 1951. I don't think we could have had anything up in the sky that would do this type of thing. You think about our technology back then, and I would be totally shocked if we had something that would make this light formation back then. And was that so? Just getting back to
So
that.
a few days later, Carl Hart Jr., not a boy, but a college student.
Oh, junior, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting older. A freshman at Texas Tech said he was standing in his parents' backyard when two V-shaped formation of lights flew over him. He grabbed his camera and set the exposure where I wanted it and went back outside and waited, and then two more lights came over. Said Hart Jr., I think I got two pictures of one and three of the other. So yeah, so the professors, I guess, are what gave the credibility, right? The sighting, because they saw it, and there were other witnesses too. It wasn't just these professors or this student, but I think that's what made it extra believable. And then you had this picture as well, to back up what everybody saw. So yes, I mean, that should not have been flying around in our skies back then. Nope.
Right. 1951. You think about that, that really is something. And was it, so it was seen more than one day, obviously, as you just mentioned, but was it seen a long time after that? I mean, were there more sightings of that particular formation? Do you know?
I mean, I would say people see things like that, continued to see things like that ever since. So, it's just like with the Stephenville lights, people still see weird lights in Stephenville. It's recently, just like within the last 5 years. So I'd say, yeah, I mean, that type of sighting hasn't stopped. I think though that was, just like a, hi and bye, kind of thing. For sure. I mean, that's definitely a pattern too. This was maybe a particular UFO that flew by and then, went on its way, and maybe others like it have, shown up since. Could be argued. Yep.
That's always made me curious, why there are flaps and why the same UFO is seen in the same location. If you think about it, if something is traveling great distances to be here, why would it focus on one particular area and be seen over and over again? It's kind of bizarre when you think about it, but maybe there's also an answer to that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it seems logical, right? It's just like if we were to, I mean, look at our Mars rovers and, the things we send out there, we're limited in where we can go and what we can do. And I would suspect they are limited too. And, who knows how many of them are out there, or how many different crafts like we were talking about. There's a lot of different things going on here. It's not just one phenomenon. So I think trying to understand the flaps, yeah, I mean, you really do have to piece it out, and start categorizing it by UFO type and what else was encountered along with those sightings and other things like that, to really try to figure out what the agenda is here, I guess, and what they are up to. And people do talk about how UFOs apparently show up near nuclear sites a lot, and Air Force bases a lot. And I've had trouble corroborating that, because the problem is, what I see is that UFOs are reported in populated cities. And guess what? There's Air Force bases near all of them. So
Hmm.
That's just the nature of it. So, how much of that, is driving uh the UFO flaps, if you will. They could be
Yeah.
happening in more rural places, right? And people just, aren't reporting on it.
Yeah. Well, there could be absolutely something to the fact of testing equipment that is, secret in nature, and them not really caring if people report it as a UFO. Maybe that's even a good thing for them, when
Hmm.
they're testing something. Because a lot of times, I've kind of argued the point with someone saying that, all the because I kind of put it all in one category, all of the triangle UFOs and military. That's what some people have said, and just secret military that we don't know about. And so the couple of arguments with that has always been, well, why would it be in a populated area? Why would
Hmm.
it be in an airspace where there's issues? Or why, um, would this be happening with all these witnesses calling it a UFO? And, maybe there is something to the fact that they are testing and they don't care whether it's seen or not. But when you go back to the same person that says all of these are UFOs, then explain them back in 1970 or
Hmm.
1960,
Exactly.
a triangle, try to explain that one
Hmm.
as
Exactly.
our own property. That's not gonna
Or,
fly, so to
the
speak.
Phoenix Lights, right? Like, why?
Right.
Why? Maybe it was our own, but that's just as confusing. I
Yeah.
think, as it not being. Yeah. And is it reverse engineered? I mean, it's like, which came first, the UFO, or, the reverse engineered version of it too? Because there definitely could be our own craft up there that we're mimicking some fancier, weirder things, that we've found or seen. So it's a difficult, again, especially now in 2022, which, one could argue maybe that's why now we have the UFO offices and things like that, is we do have so much of our own advanced stuff up there that we can explain things with. And so in many ways I feel it is actually easier to debunk UFOs today than it would have been, yeah, in 1951.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
yeah, that's why I tend to be pretty obsessed with those old sightings, as annoying as it is to some folks who just want to move on from Roswell. But I feel like a lot of the clues are still in the past.
Right. Right. Well, for one thing, we have so much information available to us. Satellite positioning, satellites at certain times. We have all that information now. We have weather anomalies, weather situations at our fingertips. There's all kinds of investigative tools
Hmm.
for looking into a report in particular you're looking into. You can even go back, okay, what was the weather back on this day in 1982 or something like that. I
Hmm.
do believe you can find all that information out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have researchers too have done so much work, over the years. So there's also a lot of connecting the dots and sharing notes and, um, yeah, adding, just one and one together, and getting two and getting a new angle on things, right? There's an apparent, to get real like Roswell-y and kind of cuckoo a little bit. There is this alleged recording with um, a woman who claimed to have been to the Roswell crash site with Albert Einstein. Now she has since passed, but we do have the recording of her sharing this testimony. And I've it was in contact with a journalist, who released this information, and he, I think, genuinely tracked down this recording. It was difficult to get out, and if we could verify any aspects, of her testimony, that would be a huge new angle, right, for
Yeah.
for ufology, and it would absolutely be relevant to today and understanding the Tic Tac UFOs. So even though people might be telling me to move on from Roswell, I'm not going to do it. I refuse to.
Do you happen to know what year?
I'll keep.
Do you happen to know what year that was recorded?
I do not off the top of my head, but I can look it up for you guys probably before the interview is over. I have a whole YouTube video about it. I just shared highlights from the recording, and I really tried. I've been trying. What details from her recording can I then go look up something new or go find something new. So if anybody else can find some clues, from that recording, that would be great. I'm trying to look it up here. Um, it's it's Dr. Shirley Wright is the woman who apparently gave this recording 1993. It's 1993 taped confession, only recently released.
Oh, I see.
So, that would
Yeah.
be great if we could find some new clues in that, or just totally disprove it, right? And I can't disprove it either, right? So that's the fun part. Obviously, that was the first thing I tried to do. Is there anything I can do to disprove that this lady existed, or that this couldn't have happened? And uh, of course, people doubt that that there was ever a UFO that crashed in Roswell. So that would be a reason to doubt her story. But
Yeah.
beyond that, I couldn't find, any major ways to debunk this. I'm still actively looking into that one, and any of, again, I think Texas is a big clue here as well, because if Roswell was not, if that wasn't a flying saucer, what are all these saucers doing? Showing up in Texas and, in Westall, Australia in the 60s, and, just all over. There's so many documented cases of these discs. So what's happening? That Roswell was just a fluke, and then it doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
So
even if you took Roswell completely out of the picture, it's still there's just so many cases,
mhm,
and we obviously can't discount all these people. I saw something myself that I couldn't explain, but never mind me. What about all these multiple witness sightings that have seen so many incredible things over the years? You can't just say uh, that there's nothing to it. And anyone that is out there, that thinks there's nothing to it, I challenge you to take a look deeply into it,
mhm.
and I do believe you will change your mind. Which kind of this is completely um, off topic, but I do want to bring it up because I get, I don't know, at least one or two emails a week, sometimes a lot more, and that is about the Ariel phenomenon
Mm,
movie, because I have been, in contact with Randall Nickerson, the film creator, for years and years. I have not. I've reached out to him a number of times. I'm not hearing from him. I do not know. Just to let everyone know, I do not know what is going on. I
mm.
only have heard rumors from people in the film business, more or less, that it's possible it's going to be coming out before spring. I was told
Oh.
last year it was going to come out before the end of the year. It never happened. Um, it's going to be most likely on a streaming platform, as far as I know. But I'm not all I'm getting at is I'm not the person to go to give you any information on that. Unfortunately, I wish I knew, because I'm waiting just like everybody else. I can't wait. Knowing Randall Nickerson's work, he's extremely fussy. He's extremely good. When that comes out, that is, I think, it will be is going to push the needle a little more. That is, I consider that
And that was
probably
also a
my favorite
saucer.
case of them all.
Mhm.
The most interesting case of them all, I think.
Oh gosh, for sure. And then that was also a saucer. I mean, if you look at
Yeah,
the pictures of the
yeah.
UFO, so it's like, yeah, I mean, what's going on here? Yeah, no, the Zimbabwe case, I've tried to reach out to some of the witnesses in the past to get an interview, and was not able to get one. So yeah, I'd love to. I can't wait for that to come out. I'm not a big UFO documentary or book reader, and some of that's just time, and then a lot of that is it's intentional, right? So I feel like I want to look at the files and the evidence and the videos and the photos uh, as objectively as I can without too many biases or opinions going into it, so I kind of avoid it. But the Ariel School incident, I'm going to be watching this one. So
Yeah, just for I know the reason I'm saying anything about this right now is because there's a lot of people that are just looking into this topic that have found my show, and I do appreciate you watching or listening, however you're doing it. But that particular case, you can just Google it. The Ariel School incident happened back in 1994. And so I welcome you to look into that, because that is a fascinating case. We don't really need to get into that right now, but it's really incredible. And I have, one of the things that's so compelling about that is the John Mack interviews with the children, child psychologist, Harvard trained, or Harvard professor. And at the time when he was interviewing those kids, it was just so boggling, some of the things that they were saying. So I have not seen those films. I think a lot of them have been taken down off of YouTube, unfortunately. But it was very, very compelling.
these were like
Oh, wait, let's put you up on the full screen. Hold on.
You can't see it. You can't see it, but those were the drawings.
Oh yeah,
You know,
you can
for
see it.
people who are not familiar with the Zimbabwe incident, those are the drawings that the children drew, or some of them.
Yeah. And that was like
Mm-hmm.
immediately right after.
Yep.
One thing, the teachers had the foresight to actually have the kids draw what they saw right away, which I think that was such a game changer, really, because it was fresh in their minds at the time, and
people should
and they all
draw what
and they drew something very similar, all of them, especially with the eyes and everything. And I know people have followed the show, have seen when I had Selma Siddick. She was one of the children there, and she was describing the skin to be like porcelain. And she said when she had to break away and go look for her siblings, that breaking eye contact from 4 feet away, about 4 feet away from this being, whatever it was, that it was one of the hardest things she ever had to do, was to break eye contact, which I think is another fascinating thing. It's such an incredible story. I know we're way off on Texas UFOs.
Oh
so,
no, it's all relevant to my world.
So Michael Brown wants to know, so what's new? Is there, you mentioned some of the new things that you had been looking into, but I also saw that you did a JetBlue video. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. So I mean, there's always sightings, being reported, here in Texas. So as far as what's new, well, I mean, the orbs, the triangles, even the discs to some extent, I mean, they're all being seen actively. People do report the grays and the reptilians and even the praying mantis. I mean, so in a nutshell, it's all happening. But yeah, so this was a really kind of cool video. So it was actually posted to Reddit, and it shows it's poorly taken outside the cockpit window of a jet of a pilot.
Actually, if you would like, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but you know how to screen share, probably, because you use this program all the time. If you'd like to screen share your video, we could post that up. I'm not sure if you can type the sound through or not. But if you don't know how to do that, I
can. I just don't have it all like set up, and I'm afraid we're gonna lose time if you try to pull it up. Shoot! I should. Oh man, I should have been better prepared, Martin. I would have prepared.
Well, that's
if I thought about that.
Something I just thought of.
Yeah. So, but people can check out the footage, on my YouTube channel, but essentially you just see this like little glowing, white orb just hovering out there in the sky, and then it seems to just kind of disappear, and it's taken, allegedly, out of a cockpit window, of a plane. And allegedly this footage was circulating between JetBlue pilots, so who are going over it and back and forth. And so, I did, light analysis on it, and it's definitely, it looks like Martin's pulling it up. You can hear my
you can hear your I'll see if I can do that and
Or like maybe
hear your own voice.
mute myself and then maybe show some of the actual footage.
I'm just seeing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just see a black right now and then can hear me
Yeah.
talking about it.
All right. Let me see what's going on.
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, here you go. Here's the, and the aspect ratio is a little annoying. This is vertical.
Ground speed 500, 37,000 feet. Nothing showing.
This is the testimony sent along with it.
TCAS. Now, I am a super genius when it comes to Google.
See, yeah, you can clip cord a little bit.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure.
No! There is a full, so there was a full testimony that was attached with the sighting. So the pilot, you know, is versed in things that they see in the sky, and it wasn't, they weren't able to identify it while flying, essentially.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm
Bummer.
yeah. Well, I'm on the road, and I have I have Bill working on the other end because I have very, very poor signal here. So I'm really very happy so far that I haven't crashed. But anyway, this I think what I'm going to do at this point is just open the lines. If someone would like to call in, I'm going to put the phone number up here. Bill will be standing by, and
I actually do have it up here, Martin, real quick. If you want me to share real quick.
Yeah, if you can do it, sure, go right ahead. Yeah,
can try.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So, all right, can you guys see that?
We're not seeing anything on this side here.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm not sure if you have to.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's see.
Actually, both of you, I uploaded the video.
Oh, okay.
Area, so it's you can play it, Martin, whenever you're ready.
Oh,
okay.
you uploaded the. Thank you, Bill. I have Bill working behind the scenes, like actually taking the position I usually do. So he's able to do all these things. Here we go. We're going to run it. How about that? Here we go.
Hey folks, it's UFO Jane, and I want to share a recent Texas UFO sighting with you today. But before I do this, remember,
you can fast forward this part if you want.
Like this video and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. All right, so according to a recent
subscribe,
Reddit
it's appreciated.
thread that was posted by a user named Offshore Attorney, a pilot saw a UFO while flying over Texas. The sighting occurred during the day at 3:20 Central, sometime in early to mid-January. A JetBlue pilot sent the video to their best friend, quote, with the following description. Ground speed 500, 37,000 feet. Nothing showing on radar for ATC and nothing showing on the TCAS. Now, I am a super genius when it comes to Google, so I think ATC means air traffic control and TCAS means traffic alert and collision avoidance system. Alright, moving on. We witnessed it for about 5 minutes, at which point it disappeared and then came back. It looked like two boxes melting into each other. I have no idea. Just imagine that in your head. Okay, so they then wrote, actual sighting was spectacular beyond what this video shows. We were stunned. Alright, let's watch the video together. Spoiler alert, it does not show two boxes melting into each other, but it is interesting. Do you see it? It's right there. Okay, so we see an orb, and it seems to mysteriously vanish. So let's get a closer view.
Well, that I wouldn't normally drop that off, but and it does. You go in closer, and I said it's good work. I like your sense of humor, by the way.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean for you guys to have to hear all that, but
no, it's good. It's good. But the reason I'm breaking here is because we do have some we have a couple of callers waiting. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring them in.
Yeah, that'd be
And we are
fun.
going to start right away with Stephen in Michigan. Stephen, you are live on the air. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Martin and Jane. Thank you for an amazing show. Every time I see Martin has a new guest on, it makes my day. So thank you to both of you.
Well, thank you. You have a question?
I have two questions.
Yeah.
I do. I'll make it quick. Jane, I'd like your thoughts on the overall safety of investigating these UFO reports. I just turned 27. I've been researching for about the past 5 years, and I've gotten to a point in which I truly don't feel safe poking and prodding any more than I already have. To be specific, I've gotten to a point of actively searching and calling for a UFO to appear, but I've quickly abandoned that practice as the majority of interactions I've heard discussed are quite negative, with many people saying they wish they never had these encounters in the first place. What are your thoughts on this? Also, quick side note, Jordan Peele has a new horror movie coming out called Nope. It's about UFOs. Have you seen that trailer? I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you, and God bless you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Stephen. So I've seen Nope, the trailer. I don't know if you've seen it, Martin, but it looks so stinking good. I cannot wait. My first love before UFOs was really movies, and so we actually have a YouTube show where we talk about the behind the scenes of movies and the real stuff. So we just went in depth on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Nope is going to be one that we'll definitely be talking about for Weird Hollywood this summer when it comes out. People should check out that trailer. It's also just a great movie trailer because you just don't know what's going to happen. It's a true trailer and it leaves you guessing and wanting to know more.
Could you say the title to that one more time?
So it's Nope. It might be Nope.
Yeah.
So it's not. You were saying. Yeah, not of planet Earth. I think. Wait, not of. Not of planet Earth, I think is what it stands for.
Oh, not of planet Earth.
Yeah. And so
it
looks amazing. I don't even want to say, I just go watch not now, later. Later, after the show, go watch the trailer. And
yeah. And did the other part of the question?
Oh my gosh, what was the other? It was a good question. Oh, yes. So the whole idea of contacting UFOs, and is this an experience you want to have or not? So for me, I haven't had an experience, at least as far as I know. I also haven't done, hypnotherapy or anything. Who knows? But I'm not an experiencer, so I can't really truly, I guess, give advice from that perspective. So I can only just really look at what I've documented over the years. And I really struggle to recommend trying to contact these things. So I say if you see a UFO, don't go up to it. And I would say be very careful if you are seeking UFO sightings or encounters. And I would go into it with very open eyes and a safe plan and, maybe some protection, whatever that looks like to you. Because look, if this is real and you really do believe that they are visiting, that's a big deal to ask for a ride on their ship or invite them into your life. So if you really do believe that, I would take it very seriously. And I would just go into it with the right attitude and mindset. Maybe with others, people do CE5, groups where they, try to summon UFOs. That seems to be a safer way to do it than just like sitting in front of your house on a random day, right? As far as the negative experiences, so the reason I would hesitate to recommend to try to see a UFO is, because I don't know what these entities are. I don't know their agenda. I don't know if it's safe or not, or if this is positive. This could be a very dark thing that's going on. The idea of somebody kidnapping you from your home and performing uncomfortable, painful exams on you. I mean, these are the stories we hear. So yes, they're quite frightening, and I wouldn't wish this upon somebody. That said, these could be, a lot of people have very positive experiences and positive interpretations of what has happened to them. So even Travis Walton, who had a very negative experience at the time, I think he felt that way at the time, very scared. I believe in his later years, he's come to more of a conclusion that when he was knocked down by the beam of light, that he could have been injured, and that those exams were actually, the aliens fixing him.
Yeah.
So, it could very well be that these visitors have, are helping us, are studying us, do mean well, and that those that come into contact are better for it. People describe being more psychic afterward, or,
Yeah.
maybe not as being afraid of death or things like that. So I,
Mhm.
I think attitude is important. And if you've had an experience, I certainly don't think it would be healthy to um, remember it as a very negative experience, because that's, difficult to process and overcome. And I think it's probably healthy to try to seek some actual logical reason for it. And there probably is one. It's hard for me to believe that these are evil beings, torturing us. I don't think that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not one of those people that's going to set up a CE5 group anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend that did one of those, and it was actually pretty comical. Some of the things that happened there, and don't need to get into it, but there was some wild imaginations. I'll just put it that way. So right now we have Ken on the line from Massachusetts. Ken, welcome to the show. You're live on the air.
Hey, Ken.
Hi, Martin and Jane. Another fantastic show tonight, Martin.
Well,
And
thank
my
you.
question is for Jane. My question is for Jane. I research old cases, new cases in my home state, and nothing gets the blood pumping more like you see an article in the newspaper or online. Oh, UFO sighted. And my question to her is, what's her opinion on, when you get all hyped up and you read the article and they show you a video and it's quite clearly Chinese lanterns. Or I don't know if you've seen the latest one. Did you see the one from Hawaii where mysterious object hovers over Hawaii, 2 fighter jets are scrambled? You can see the picture in 2 seconds. You can see a balloon with a string hanging down, holding a payload underneath it. And so, what's your opinion? Is reports like that helpful, or because it's getting exposure to UFO subject, or hurting it because people look into it? Oh, it's a balloon. Oh, it's Chinese lanterns. So, what's your opinion? I'll take the answer after you.
Thank you, Ken.
That's a great question. And early on, when I saw Chinese lanterns, I thought aliens were invading. Okay, so it's super normal to be frightened by that and to report it. You're not crazy. You're actually just paying attention. And yeah, there are a lot of really fantastical things that then become quite mundane, as a researcher, and you go through those cycles and those process. I mean, we were just looking at some footage that definitely you could say, oh, that's just a balloon. That footage was interesting to me, considering the pilot perspective and that. And so that's why I wanted to share that one. But I'm regularly debunking and solving cases. So that's the first thing I'm trying to do with any UFO case, is to find a very mundane, boring explanation. Most cases I come across, I do not report on. It looks to be a lens flare, Chinese lanterns. I know I've said that a lot, but that's just because that's probably the most common misidentification. So if you're seeing orange orbs forming different formations, sometimes hovering, sometimes moving, and then gradually disappearing, that's probably Chinese lanterns. Nighttime parachuters, that's another wild
Yeah.
sight. If you haven't seen that before, what
And
else?
they have the flare. They have the flares on their feet. Yeah.
Crazy looking, wild looking. So there's a lot of misidentifications. I don't think that most people are hoaxing things or falsely reporting, right? I think we just get carried away with these unexplained lights that we see. Is it hurting? I mean, yeah, I guess so. But I think, the question, are we alone in the universe, that never goes away. And anytime that flutter, you get that flutter. Oh, could that be an alien? I think, you're just waiting for the next time to get that feeling again. So no, I don't think you're just like, oh, that was a balloon. Okay, I'm not going to look again. I mean, one of the most, I had this video, guys, that was still deciding what to do with it, because I think I'd almost like to make a, a, a feature around a debunking a debunking story that I have, so I'm kind of saving it. But there was this really incredible footage. Like, it was just like, if this is real, this is the best UFO video I've ever seen in my life. And so I tried and tried and tried to debunk it, and couldn't debunk it. So, we're pretty close, to traveling and going out to the field for that one, because it was such a big one. And thank God was able to solve it, before that visit. And that's just how things go. You're about to prove aliens are visiting, and now you've just proved a hoax, essentially.
Yeah.
Somebody was
Well,
goofing with you. So that's
a lot of
just how
times,
things go.
a lot of times it's not a hoax. A lot of times it's just
Right.
seen as something else, or, I mean, like you mentioned, the parachuters, things like that. I mean, it is so easy, because a lot of times when we see something, it is like unbelievable. For instance, the failed missile launches, the failed rocket launches,
Oh, yeah.
those have make the most incredible UFO spirals. They're
Mhm.
just amazing. We have Bill on the line from Florida. Bill, you're live on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Bill.
Bill, you're live on the air. Welcome to the show. Now,
Oh,
Bill,
no, we lose him.
Bill was that's absolutely me, and I'm sorry I had that muted. Bill, sorry about that. You're live now. Welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you, Martin and Jane. I heard you two talking about the Ariel School phenomena.
Yeah.
And I'd also heard that there were other cases at schools, like there was one down in Miami, Florida.
Yes.
Anyway, and it brought to mind the Sandy Hook school, and that there were UFO sightings over that at about the same time that whole thing happened. And I was just wanting to know what your comments were on that.
I've never heard anything about that.
I never, and I was reporting on UFOs at that time. Man, what year was that? I think I blocked that out. I think I blocked that out.
It's a horrible case to even remember.
Yeah, 2000.
I do know that Preston Dennett, for instance, has looked deeply into schoolyard UFO sightings, and I'm sure he would have uncovered. I don't know where he heard that in particular, but I do not believe, Bill, that that's anything that I've ever heard about before.
Yeah,
Is that it, Bill?
Take myself. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have Steve from California. Steve, welcome to the show. You're live.
Hi, Martin. Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Hi.
I've been following the UFO phenomena since the mid-'60s. So it's progressed through the years. I started gathering data, information on sightings, documents, etc. And then in the early 80s, when the internet went up, I started collecting UFO footage. And then sharing that on Facebook. I have a room called Truth Be Told, where I share all the information daily with UFO sightings and news. And what I found out is this phenomena is around the world, and it's constantly UFO sightings every day. And so there's a lot to share there. And some of the conclusions I've come from gathering information, data that I'm going on, that there's UFO hotspots such as Brazil, and I would consider Texas a hotspot because I get a lot of UFO footage from Texas and sightings. Do you think Texas is a hotspot?
Well, it's how I got into this field, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't be doing this, I guess, if it wasn't. So yeah, I do think so. And, but whether that, yes, maybe population per square footage is low, but the biggest some, like if you look at the top 10 cities in America, I think 3 of them are in Texas. Three or four or something, like a lot, like San Antonio, Houston, Austin's now up there, Dallas is now up there, right? So those cities alone are going to drive a ton of reports, right? Because there's just so many people. So whether or not that's being driven just by people, just the number of people, is a question. I don't know. I really think that you can see a UFO anywhere. I really do. I think you just have to be paying attention and looking up. I live in Texas and I've seen one maybe one time. So it seems it has to do almost more with the person versus the place you're in, whether or not you're going to see something. So, I mean, I know people who see things all the time, or witnesses that report multiple encounters to me. I'm not having that experience. We live in the same state, right? So it's, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I do. There's a lot of activity here for sure. I can totally corroborate that.
Now, Ray Stanford, are you familiar with? Have you ever heard of Ray Stanford?
I have not looked. I'm not an expert on him,
Well, no,
so I really can't. Yeah.
Ray Stanford is a longtime UFO researcher. He wrote a book on the Socorro incident that was really a very good book. He actually had a UFO detection station with something like, I want to say, maybe $1 million worth of equipment in Texas in the late 1970s. And there was a lot of activity then. I just thought of that. We do have another caller on the line.
That's a really nice. I love that. I love every little nugget like that. That's beautiful. Okay, so okay, cool.
Yeah. So that is something you may. I can't. There was a name for the company that he formed and everything, but there was some activity that he actually got some data on at the time.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. All right. We have Joni. I think I know who that is. Joni, welcome to the show. You're live on the air.
Yeah.
Right.
My question is, does your guest think that there's any correlation between UFOs and the orb sightings and Bigfoot?
So I've definitely heard, I haven't directly investigated or reported on cases where people saw Bigfoot and UFOs at the same time, but there are absolutely cases like that. I'm into Bigfoot and ghosts and the psychic phenomenon and all of those unexplained things. So I'm not one of those UFO researchers that only researches UFOs and Bigfoot's all that. That's all crap. No, I think Bigfoot. I've interviewed a few Bigfoot hunters, and I've looked into a little bit, but I'm not a Bigfoot hunter, alas, myself, not yet. So I don't think confidently make that connection. I will say I like to think of Bigfoot as Chewie, like from Star Wars, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like an intergalactic space traveler, right? That can just disappear, in an instance and not leave any trace behind. So, I mean, why not? Why couldn't there be some other interdimensional traveler, connected to UFOs? The more, I guess you could say, boring but still really cool theories around it simply being just a biological missing link where there's just a few quantities of these humanoids, essentially, right? Remnants from I'm gonna say it wrong. You guys know what I mean. Giganta. You guys know what I mean. I'm gonna butcher the scientific name. I think those theories are compelling too, and you don't have to invoke any UFOs or mystical, interdimensional travel there. I do think Bigfoot is kind of like UFOs, though, where we use this one term. I mean, there's Yeti and Sasquatch, just like there's UFOs and UAP and things like that, where we do use this one term to explain all of this. And one of the reasons that I do feel that extraterrestrials are probably visiting is if you just look at our own planet Earth and all the diversity of life here and all the animals and species we still discover every year and have yet to discover. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So I think there's all kinds of really big animals out there that do a good job at hiding from us. I don't think you necessarily have to be an advanced ET species to hide pretty well from human beings. I was talking to Cliff Brackman, who people may know from Finding Bigfoot. Pretty entertaining show, but Cliff actually takes a more kind of reasonable, scientific viewpoint, and he has a lot of really cool insight around this. People are like, well, Bigfoot's real, where are the bones? Well, this is also common for other animals, like bears and things like that. You don't go find, they go die, and you don't just find their bones out in nature. And those are, a creature that we know exists. There's many different species. They're, all over. So I think you can look at it through the non-UFO lens, but why can't there be more than one Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Janie, thank you for the call. Joni, I'm sorry.
I think
Yeah.
that's okay. Bye.
All right. Bye now. Thank you. Yeah, we had a show recently where there were people that was making the connection in Oregon between UFOs and Bigfoot. It was kind of fascinating. I don't know what to think of it all.
Skinwalker
but it
Ranch.
was,
I mean, you've got where people have reportedly seen Bigfoot-like creatures or humanoid-like creatures, and then you also have the orb phenomenon going on there. When you start to get into topics like Skinwalker Ranch, it's where a lot of this narrative of, okay, here's the triangle UFOs, and here's the orbs, and here's the ghosts, and here's the Bigfoot, all of that kind of falls apart at Skinwalker Ranch. And it's almost like you can almost disprove all of it or prove all of it at Skinwalker Ranch. And so I do feel like that's an underlying, thing kind of bubbling up to the surface, challenging all of us. And there's a lot of answers there. And I do think there's more overlap, and why we separate ghosts from orbs is weird to me. Why we separate spirits from aliens is weird to me. These are very overlapping.
But the one thing, I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree with most of it. But the one thing about that where UFOs kind of separate from those other weird or unusual paranormal type things is that we have data. We have data on, we have not only film, which is, there can be argued that not so great, images or film, maybe not as much as we do other things. I mean, there are a couple of known ones that are really good. Of course, when you look at this one here, that is pretty amazing. The film of the Baldwin UFO in Australia, very clear. A guy took in his garden. That's a really interesting one. We have the Trent UFO. These are old pictures, of course, but still, we have radar data, and I mean, pictures like this in 1951. I mean, there's much more than with Bigfoot. We have the Patterson-Gimlin film. We have ghosts. I don't know what we have with ghosts, but
yeah, I guess it's more. So to me, it's a lot of language, right? So cryptozoology versus what is the difference between interdimensional and communicating with the spirit in the afterlife? To me, these are all impossible things, right? That could all be what's going on here, right? So yeah, I 100% agree. There's a total difference between having radar evidence and a photo of something in the sky versus maybe even having an electronic recording of some static interference, right? That suggests some kind of communication, right? But it is interesting to me when people theorize about the origin, of UFOs, that all that we're really talking about, right, are aliens or ETs. And it's that seems we're making a lot of assumptions, right? We still have a lot to learn about how the conscious brain works and have thoughts, maybe can transfer, in the atmosphere more than we realize, right? When it comes to the psychic phenomenon. So that's why I brought that up, right? So because when we're talking about cases like the Zimbabwe case where the children, claim to have had these messages that were downloaded,
Right.
during the encounter, right?
Mhm.
It's interesting that we're only allowed to talk about aliens. It's like, well, what about ghosts? What about spirits? What about crypto? What about so there's I don't think we really know the right questions to
Yeah.
ask yet. So we've got to keep Bigfoot
Yeah.
in the conversation. We've got to keep it all on the top of mind, I guess.
Yeah. I think how you just framed that was very well said about the question. We don't know what the question to ask. That's what makes it so fascinating. And we may not even understand the answer, which I think is also fascinating. So we only have a couple minutes left here, and I want you to, if you would, tell people how they can. I think I believe I have your link down in the show notes, but tell people.
Oh shoot! I don't know if that's me or you. I think Martin froze, or I froze. Somebody froze.
Okay. Yeah.
But
It's
I think I
definitely
know what you said.
it's aliens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So no, we only have 2 minutes left. So how can someone find you?
Yeah. So you guys were kind enough to show like that whole YouTube video
Yeah.
during the stream. So I appreciate that. UFO Jane on YouTube, subscribing there, liking that content. If you're in Texas though, and you're really into those just documentary reports, Texas UFOs on Facebook or TexasUFOsightings.com, and on Twitter, that's where you'll get those just sometimes more boring reports. But if you're really, really trying to understand the phenomenon on a regular basis, and then YouTube, where we do the interviews and analysis of some of these some sightings. Sometimes we also do Weird Hollywood, where we talking about the movie Predator on Thursday, actually, and actually tying it into real cases, right? Real things. Could the Predator, is that a feasible alien? Could we be hunted for sport? Oh my gosh, a little darker subject for Thursday, but appreciate all the support, and so appreciated being invited on the show. I'm sorry I was late.
No, that was my fault. But that was totally my thing, and me being on the road and typing wrong numbers to you. But anyway, I appreciate it very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
This is a blast. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, everybody in the chat.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right, everyone. So back next week. I will not be back, but you can see this show will premiere exactly at 6 p.m. as always, every Tuesday, automatically, and will be up as a podcast as always later on that night. So thank you so much. And next week, by the way, I just to mention it again, is Kevin Randall and Albert Wayne. And I appreciate all of my listeners and watchers on YouTube, and we'll keep your eyes to the sky.